Good morning, everyone. Kris here with Inspired Energy. Joining me this morning, our Master of Human Design, Hartwell. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
So, this morning we're looking at the Ring of the Illuminati, which includes gates 44 and 50. And when I read this title, I, I'm like, ooh, the Illuminati. It kind of sounds like that.
Yes.
But it's kind of funny that you associate certain things in the world with certain words, right? So, what does it really mean? So, let's dive into our codon ring of the Illuminati. So, what are we looking at?
Well, let's start with 44. 44 is about karmic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a journey from interference to synarchy via the way of teamwork. And its amino acid is glutamic acid. It's also relating to the immune system. So it's another splenic gate pointing towards the ego. And so bear with me for a second because this is a little bit hard to describe, but are you familiar with fractals? Are you
Me?
familiar with fractals, Kris?
No. Other than little pieces of things.
Well, fractals are, if you go onto Pinterest and you bring up, Google fractals or something like that, what you get are these beautiful pictures that look like waves breaking on the shore. And there's a way in which, by looking at these fractals, you see that if you take a subsection of each fractal, it looks exactly like the big picture. And then
Also,
if you
like a
take an even
hologram.
sort of,
Yeah.
yes. So holograms and fractals are related, but there's this idea that all the way up or all the way down, these patterns unfold in nature. Okay. And what Richard Rudd is saying, that when we look at the 44, we see that we are all linked together in these invisible patterns. I like to think of it as web,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And because we are all connected, looking at it as a fractal, looking at it as these patterns is another way of thinking about what we often talk about as karma and the way that people are bound together through karma. So here he's inviting us to look at us being bound together energetically because of these patterns in these webs.
Mm-hmm.
And when we begin to understand that we're part of these webs, then we have the opportunity to begin to look at things with a quality of devotion. And because we're connected in these webs, there's a collective choreography that's dancing through our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And at the level of fear, that choreography is chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
It's chaotic, okay?
Yeah.
And it creates an interference pattern with our lives. So this
Mm-hmm.
energy of fear creates an interference pattern, which is the word here, our shadow word,
Mm-hmm.
that disrupts patterns, disrupts our lives, disrupts all these web of associations that we're part of.
Yeah, I guess you could say it also like disharmony, like interference. There's a disharmony in the energy field, right?
Well, good word, good word. And you will see that actually is a word directly related to our other codon ring, our other gate here, 50.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both related. So it's interesting that you're picking up that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so these invisible patterns bind particular groups together. And then the interference patterns, the interference disrupts those patterns and leads us into chaos. But the interesting implication of this is that if we begin to rise above the level of fear, then the interference patterns begin to subside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then we, in a sense, begin to rise into the energy of teamwork. And this is where a genius for being able to read other people arises. Smell is important. It's like you can pick up the scent of your true allies in life. You begin to understand these are the ones for me and these are not the ones for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you gain an ability to be good at group dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than think of groups of people who are karmically, we could say that a fractal is what incarnates
Mm-hmm.
and reincarnates. These patterns are what reincarnate, not necessarily an individual consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So at the level of teamwork, you begin to recognize who belongs in your life, who doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And you gain the ability to create teamwork and create an energy of teamwork between the people in your life that are right for you. And you begin to, the destructive patterns in your life begin to release and go away.
Mm-hmm.
So at the level of synarchy, which is the highest level,
Mm-hmm.
synarchy is the concept of being ruled by a collective, which is to say almost like a group mind, in a sense, governs or infuses the direction of the world. And this is where our mythology of a secret society of masters exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because like a computer source code, when you write a program, there's always something called a source code, so that is the key or the center point of the programming.
Right.
So just like there are source codes in computer programs, there are core fractals within humanity. There's core, in a sense, call them clans, maybe call them
Pods or collectives
families, families maybe. But there's only ultimately we each belong to one of these core fractals, but
right.
there's only a limited number of them.
Mm-hmm.
On a planet of 7 billion people, there are only 144,000. And so there's this mythology that has arisen, or this awareness that has arisen, that at the center of society, there are only 144,000 chosen ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that shows up in Christianity and shows up in occult studies, the Bible, yes. And so that's what that refers to.
Mm-hmm. So I like the idea of there being that secret society, which, we talk about the Illuminati and everybody says that they're the secret society that's running everything. But really, what it takes to shift humanity is people working and doing the work behind the scenes to actually shift it, but they have to do it quietly. And it's an eventual thing. It's not an overnight, anarchy thing where all hell breaks loose and all of a sudden the next day it's okay. It's evolutionary. So I think that this gene key is really cool.
Well, I think of it as, people at higher vibrations somehow anchoring us to the possibility of all the highest potentials for who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're anchoring and vibrating while we get our shit together and join them.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you and I both have the 44.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel that sense sometimes that I have instinct for which people are right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, I've never, I don't know if I've shared this with you, but I had a dream one night in my late teens or early 20s that I was part of a collective and that we were all in harmony with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and that there was a choreography that we were all responding to on an inner spiritual kind of intuitive level.
Mm-hmm.
And this gene key really speaks to that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, like, I think we each must have our thing, because for me, it was always from the time I was a child. I got told I looked at the world through rose colored glasses because I believe in utopia. I believe that we have this ability to function as a unit and all get along and all love one another and respect one another. And I've had that since I was a child. So I tie that to this gene key, right? That
Yeah.
there's meant to be this way of doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, or even the Force in the Star Wars movies.
Hmm.
This energy that infuses everything and somehow choreographs everything.
Yeah,
Very
exactly.
cool. But
So
you will
what?
see that
Go ahead. Hmm.
you will see that why in a minute you will see why the gene key 50 is linked with 44,
Hmm.
because the gene key 50 is about cosmic order. It's a
Hmm.
journey from corruption to harmony via the way of equilibrium. And it's
Beautiful.
also about the immune system.
Hmm.
So at the shadow level here, we have the word corruption.
Hmm.
Corruption. So we can approach this from a couple of different metaphors. I mean, sometimes when we talk about computers, there's this idea that data can sometimes be corrupted,
Hmm.
and then it interferes with the operation of the system.
Right.
Or we have the idea of, RNA is in genetic language is it serves as a function as a messenger for DNA,
Hmm.
and sometimes when genetic in the genetic process, there's things where one thing is turned into another, and that's called transcription.
Hmm.
But sometimes things go wrong in the process of changing one thing to another in the transcription process, and therefore a corruption happens.
Kind of like the phone game, where you
Well,
start out with a message
exactly.
and pass it along, and by the time you get to the end, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Exactly like that, right?
Hmm.
That we all played as kids. And it's like, you can never really believe, how is it that it got so badly garbled
Yeah. Exactly.
in such a short time?
Hmm.
But at the level of fear, fear garbles everything,
Hmm.
So fear messes with the cosmic order. And Richard Rudd he seems to have a very clear intuition that hierarchy is a system based on fear, and that
Hmm.
the hierarchical system of our lives keeps us in that fear vibration. But as we
Hmm.
slowly rise out of that fear vibration, things are going to change.
Hmm.
Things are going to change. And we arise to the level of the gift, which is equilibrium. So you can see you were using the word disharmony, and it was
Hmm.
directly related to the 50.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, so at that fear vibration, everything gets corrupted. And then we have an energy of decrease and chaos and corruption. Fear rules the masses. I always think of, the Batman comic book and the
Hmm.
Gotham City. It always seemed
Yep.
like, why do people want to read this? Because it seems like everything is so corrupt and
And
everything
dark
is
and
disgusting
yeah.
and dark.
Hmm.
To me, this is what, this is Gene Key 50.
Yeah.
But at the level of equilibrium, we start to realize that everyone every human has inherent within them a sense of what is harmonious both for themselves both for themselves personally and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
Once we rise out of that fear, we know how to create harmony.
Mm-hmm.
As Carl Jung would say, nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on the environment and on children than the unlived life of the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So when we don't examine and look to heal ourselves, we have to realize that that corruption that we haven't dealt with in ourselves automatically gets passed to the children.
Well, even you can influence them by what you say and do, even after, not just genetically. But I go back to my ex-husband talking about my son, right? Wanting him to be this great hockey player and pushing him and pushing him and pushing him when it was actually my husband's dream to be the hockey player, but not my son's. So
Right.
yeah, so it plays out in a lot of different ways, right?
It sure does. But
Mm-hmm.
even scarier, if you are a well-meaning parent who's doing your best
Mm-hmm.
and doing some of the right things, but ignoring your own unhappiness and your own pain, even if you don't do anything overtly bad, you are affecting your children with the unhealed parts of
Yeah,
yourself.
the energy. Yeah.
Right. Because we're
Mhm.
all connected, right? And these two gene keys are really pointing out that.
Yeah, this is another reason why I want to do the human design in conjunction with the parent and children things, because there's so many things that parents can come to understanding about their children and even about themselves that will help them actually facilitate, some of these
Yes,
shifts and changes that they need to make, right? So,
exactly.
yeah.
And so we see why honesty is so important because
Mhm.
honesty helps us resist that fear that leads to corruption.
Mhm.
So it's interesting because in the I Ching language, this one is called the cauldron.
Mhm.
And it's like people with this gift know what the right ingredients are for creating harmony within families and societies.
Mhm.
So, really, the only thing we need, if all of this seems too intellectual for you and too hard to grasp, and oh my God, how would I ever use this to benefit my life?
Mhm.
The simplest way to think about it is if you can deal with the things in your life that keep you in an energy of fear, and start to release fear from your life and raise your vibration to a level of love,
Mhm.
everything will automatically happen. Everything
Mhm.
will automatically improve because harmony exists within us
Mhm.
naturally and intrinsically.
Yeah. Well, if you want things to change, you have to change the way you're doing things, right? They don't automatically change just because you want them to. You have to take action. And I think that that was another thing that I learned from human design. And that is the way to move through fear is actually movement, is actually to move and do something, right? When you're talking about the line numbers. So that's what I tie this to when you're saying about just, you know,
Mm,
actually make a
yes.
shift, to make a change. So,
But
yeah.
it also supports the people who believe in the power of meditation. So
Hmm.
if you learn to uplift yourself through spiritual practices so that you're no longer in a fear vibration, it will have positive benefits rippling
Hmm.
out from that.
Yeah.
And so these two gene keys are all about the ripple effect
Yeah.
because they do have to do with the way humanity is organized in groups.
Yeah. But,
Um, so harmony is the highest energy
hmm.
of the gene key 50.
Yeah.
So here we've gone from corruption to harmony. And if your mind is focused on corruption, you might never see or understand that harmony is actually implicit in corruption
Hmm.
because they are connected across a spectrum. If you raise your energy, you raise it out of corruption towards harmony.
Hmm. Yeah.
And this
Exactly.
is where we have, again, this there are those of us who believe in some kind of malefic order who is controlling events from the outside, like
Hmm.
the evil
Hmm.
Illuminati.
Yeah.
And the fear that is behind, the fear vibration behind these two gene keys is what leads to that sort of paranoia that we're all being controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But at the true center of things, there are those people who are chosen.
Mm-hmm.
But the chosen ones, that idea is really, um, it's the symbol for our awareness that as we rise in our own evolution, that we can take part in,
Mm-hmm.
step up to our own role as chosen ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know,
because that's what it takes. Everybody has to step up, right? In order for things to change. And eventually, people become examples. So if you live your life in a Christed state or in that state of harmony, eventually others will say, oh, I want that too. And then how do I get that? And then they will start to shift and change by that example, right?
yeah, in
Mm.
so many ways our efforts are important. And I
So,
mean, at this level, we the metaphor of music becomes powerful.
mm-hmm,
When we talk about harmony, we often are talking about music.
mm-hmm,
And so we've heard that phrase, the music of the spheres,
mm-hmm,
the sense that on the underlying level of things, or the world card in the tarot,
mm-hmm,
everything is connected within a grand harmony, which could be seen as musical.
mm-hmm,
And as Red would say, if there's one thing you can say about this 50th city, it is that as it grows in power, it will orchestrate groups and communities of human beings into a beautiful symphony in which we become the instruments, and consciousness itself is the music that plays through us.
right. That's beautiful. So that's how you would sum up everything. So, what would you say about next week? What are we feeling our way into for next week?
The next week we talk about a codon ring that only has two gene keys as well. The Ring of Fire, it's called,
Ooh.
and it includes gene key number 1 and gene key 14.
Mm-hmm.
One being the is called the creative. So this is all about the creative fire that exists
Mm-hmm.
in the world.
Ah, that should be interesting. So we look forward to that. So if you guys have enjoyed today, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, and also make sure that if you want to go deeper, Hartwell is here and would love to explore going deeper with any of your charts. Or if you would like to have a chart and haven't had one, you can come and make an appointment here at Clair-i-tea, 587-596-3333. So we look forward to serving you more, and we look forward to seeing you next week. With that, we'll sign out. Goodbye. God bless.